So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Gloria, and over the next hour or so, we are going to talk about how to transform or change the way that you manage digital files. So I'm going to ask for a virtual show of hands. How many of you have spent more than 10 minutes looking for a file that you know you saved somewhere? Yeah. I know I'm also, before I started using OneDrive, I also used to spend a lot of time looking for files. So great, that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to discuss how you can save files in the easiest way. Okay, so this is our agenda. We'll first talk about what file chaos is really costing you, and it's more than what you may think. Next, we'll talk about a 3-layer system that works whether you work alone or you're part of a big team. Next, we'll talk about OneDrive. We'll spend a good chunk of time there. We'll discuss what OneDrive is, and then we'll discuss what SharePoint is. There's normally a lot of confusion between the two, but by the end of today's webinar, you should be able to tell them apart. And finally, we'll have a live demo so you can see exactly how to implement all the principles that we'll discuss today. And you'll leave with at least one thing that you can implement this week. Okay, which one of these sound familiar? Just going to read through them. And you don't have to put your hand up or anything, but just if it sounds familiar, you're not the only one. Just going to go through these. The first one is, where did I save that file? The second is, this is final, version 3, actual final. The third one is, I sent you a file, but I just can't find it anymore. Number 4 is, my desktop looks like a digital landfill. That's happened to me before. And the last one is, I lost 2 hours looking for that proposal. So if you've ever had trouble with file management, one of those will sound familiar. And I'm just going to add to those statements. I'm just going to share some statistics with you. Research from the McKinsey Global Institute found that the average knowledge worker spends 1.8 hours every day searching for information. That is 9 hours a week, almost a full working day. Think about it. That is a lot of time spent on looking for things instead of actually doing things. And it's not just about time, right? It's also about the stress that comes with looking for things. It's also about looking unprofessional in front of your clients. It's also about that sinking feeling that you get when you can't find a file that you need for a meeting that's coming up. But the good news is this is one of the most solvable problems. You don't need any new software. You don't need to be technical. You just need a system. So let's talk about a system that will work for you. So I have a system. It's called the 3-layer file system, and it's a simple, scalable structure that you can use starting today. So this is the framework. It's 3 layers. If you master these 3 layers, you'll never lose a file again. So let's start with layer number 1. Let's talk about folder structure. So most people make folders the way that they make grocery lists. They just bunch everything together randomly as they go. But instead of doing it that way, when you create folders, think of those folders as categories or as groups. For example, if you work with department projects, you could use the format department, project, then year. Or if your role involves working with clients, then you could have the structure client, then project, then year. And that's the rule for your folder structure. You can't go more than 3 levels deep. If you need a 4th level, you probably need to split things differently or rethink on how to better categorize your files. So that's the first layer, the first section, folder structure, maintain only 3 levels, and try and categorize your files and create folders after a category or a group. The second layer is naming. This one is very important. This is actually the biggest game changer. So when it comes to naming your files, you need a system or a format that you can use consistently for all your files. And I have one that you can steal and use for yourself. You could use this format. This format is year dash month dash day underscore name of the file and then underscore version of the file. No spaces, no symbols, just that name, file name. So for example, for this webinar, my slide deck was 2026-06-17 underscore webinar slide deck and then underscore version 5. That was the name I used to save this slide deck. But why do it this way? Why put the year first? Well, this is because your computer sorts alphabetically by default. So starting with the date means your files automatically sort chronologically. The newest will always be at the top or the bottom, depending on how you sort your files. So just remember that format: year, month, date, underscore, name of the file, underscore the version of that file. And that is layer number 2. Layer number 3, the easiest one, version control. In OneDrive, you never have to save 5 versions of the same document. You don't need to save 5 copies of the same file. OneDrive does this for you automatically. Every save creates a version you can roll back to, and we'll see this in the live demo. So just remember that every time you hit save in OneDrive, a version of that document is saved automatically. You can always find it or roll back to that version. So try and implement just one layer this week and you will feel a difference. So try layer 1 and then later on try layer 2. Layer 3 happens automatically if you're using OneDrive. But on that note, let's talk about what OneDrive is. So what is OneDrive? Well, if you have a Microsoft 365 account, you have 1 terabyte of cloud storage included with your subscription. That's roughly enough for 250,000 documents. Just think about it. That's a lot of documents. And you're probably not even using half of that. So that's what OneDrive is. It's your personal filing cabinet. And think of it as your private cloud storage that travels with you anywhere. So OneDrive has 4 superpowers that I'd like to take you through. The first superpower that OneDrive has is that it can sync to any device. That means your PC, your laptop, your iPad, your phone. You can save a file to OneDrive from any of those devices and access it from any of the devices. And even if you're working offline, the moment you go back online, it syncs automatically to update the changes that were made while you were offline. That's the first superpower. Superpower number 2 is secure sharing. When people share files, what they will do normally is that they'll send an email or send the file as an attachment in an email. But when you share files that way, what that means is that you can't control a copy of the file that you've just created, right? Because by sending an attachment, you've created a copy and you have no control over that copy that you've shared with someone. But in OneDrive, you can share a file using a link. You can set who sees it, whether they can edit the file, and even when the link expires. You have full control over the file and you can revoke access when you want to. And I'll show you how to do this during the demo session. So secure sharing is one of OneDrive's biggest superpowers. Superpower number 3, we've already alluded to this one, and that's version history. Every save in OneDrive creates a backup. If you've deleted something important or accidentally overwritten a section, You can find that previous version that you had within seconds. And number 4, co-authoring. In OneDrive, you can co-author in real time. Multiple people can work on the same document simultaneously. There's no more, I'm waiting for you to close a file or I'll send you my version. Multiple people can work on the same file at the same time. So that's OneDrive. And one thing I'd like you to remember is that OneDrive is your personal storage. It's where you store your personal files, any kind of documents that you're working on that are in progress, you'll store them in OneDrive. Team files or department files belong in SharePoint, which we'll talk about next. So let's talk about the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint. So again, OneDrive, your personal space. SharePoint is where teams live and collaborate. So this is the analogy I'd like you to remember, that OneDrive is your storage, it's your personal filing cabinet, and SharePoint is the office filing room. It's where the team's official documents live. This is where you store things like published policies, the current contracts, and the final versions that everyone needs to access. And if you take a look at the slide, the comparison between the two, OneDrive is where you store your personal files, your drafts, your work in progress, files that you may share with specific people, so specific collaboration, and then local sync to your device. And then SharePoint is team and department files, published final documents, files shared with a whole team organization. You can even have intranet sites and Teams hubs in SharePoint. So a mistake that people may make is putting team files on OneDrive. And then if you fall sick and can't come to work, or you leave the company, or you go on holiday, people are stuck because the files that they need are stored in your personal OneDrive. So the rule of thumb is if more than one person needs it long term, it should be in SharePoint. If it's just you or temporary collaboration, then you can store it in OneDrive. So that's the difference between the two. Okay, now let's talk about something critical. Permissions. Who can see what? Okay, so permissions are critical. This is where things can go horribly wrong. So there are 4 permission levels, and I'm going to walk you through each and when to use each of these permission levels. The first permission level is view only. So at this permission levels, people can read a file, they can't change it, and they can't download it. So this is a great permission level for things like policies, signed contracts, finalized reports. Anything that should stay exactly as it is should have this view only permission level. Next permission level is can comment. This is great for anything that is in review or needs to be looked over again. So for can comment, the actual content can't be changed. What people can do is add comments or add suggestions on how the file can be changed. So it's the original stays clean, but you can add feedback in the comments. Next is can edit. So this is full editing access. This is for collaboration. Anything that's active, team collaboration, project planning, drafts being refined, anything that's collaborative should have can edit access. And finally, we have owner and full control. This person can do anything. They can delete files, they can change who has access. And this is normally reserved for managers or project leads or department heads or admins. Most people won't have this kind of permission on most files. So a pro tip is if you have to share a file with someone who's outside of your organization, it could be a client or a vendor, always use an expiration date on the link. So if you share a link with them, a link to a file that's in your SharePoint, put in an expiration date, and that way they can only have access to that file for a limited period. If you don't put in an expiration date, that link could become a security risk months down the line. So it's important to remember to put in those restrictions. if any sharing is going to be done with people outside of your organization. Okay, we're going to move on to the live demo section of our webinar now, and we're going to talk about 5 things. So these 5 things, these are just 5 demonstrations of how you can work in OneDrive. Try and pick out the one that you like the most to practice this week. Don't try and do all of them at one go. Just pick one that you feel like you can start practicing right away, master that one, you can move on to the next. So I'll go through them one at a time. The first one is creating a smart folder structure. The next one is renaming files using the format that we discussed earlier: year, month, date, file name, and then version. Number 3, we'll talk about how to share a file in OneDrive and also how to revoke access when necessary. Number 4 is restoring a previous version of a file. So if I want to access a previous version of a file, how do I do that in OneDrive? And then finally, how to upload a folder to SharePoint. We'll talk about that as well. So first demo is creating a smart folder structure. So I'm gonna pull up my OneDrive, see it there. Let's talk about how to create a smart folder structure. So from our 3-layer system, you'll remember that we create folders by category. So if you work with clients, you could have a folder for clients, then go 1 layer down and have a folder for a client name, and then another folder for a specific project that you're working on for that client. So I'm going to show you how to create that folder structure. So in OneDrive, you create your folder by going to this button right here. I'm going to click on create or upload. We'll create a folder, and the folder is going to be clients. If you like, you can use any of these folder colors. If it's going to help you identify certain folders or group certain folders under one color, you can do that. It's pretty helpful. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my folder dark orange for clients. And that is going to be the first layer. That's the first layer, clients. In this clients folder, I'm going to create another folder and have a folder for each client that I have. So I'll pretend that I have a client called John Roberts, and I'm going to put his name in there and create a folder for him because I have a lot of projects that I work on for this client. So I have a folder for Mr. John Roberts. And then in there, in the John Roberts folder, I'm going to have another subfolder where I have a subfolder for each project I'm working on for John Roberts. I'm going to create another folder, and I'm going to pretend that I'm going to do Excel training for him soon. That's a project I'm working on. So I'm going to put in Excel training, make that green, click create, and I have a folder in there. And in that folder, I can save all the files that are related to that Excel training in that folder. So those are the levels: clients, the name of the client, and the project I'm working on for that specific client. That is deep enough. And if you find yourself going 4, 5, 6 clicks deep, you've got too many subfolders. Try and flatten it, use better naming instead. And one last pro tip when it comes to this part of the demo is that at your top level folder, so in the clients folder, we have the top level, have another folder and call it archive. I'm going to call this one archive. And in this archive folder, move there anything that is older than 2 years, because the moment it's older than 2 years, it's probably just a distraction and it's just filling up your subfolders. So you can move everything to that archive folder. That means your daily view will stay clean, but you don't lose anything. Everything is accessible if you want to find it. So that is how you create a smart folder structure. Okay, let's move on to demo number 2. And we are going to talk about renaming files. We're going to talk about renaming files. So I have a lot of poorly named files in there. Some have really similar names. These two have very similar names. These two also have similar names. I have a file named document. Then I have a file named final exercise file version 4. So I'd like us to use that naming format we spoke about and name a couple of these files. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there. So to rename a file in OneDrive, you can just mouse over the file, click on the ... and you'll see an option to rename your file. And I'm going to rename it using this format. So we start with the year 2026, then dash the month 06, dash the year 17, and then underscore the name of the file. So I'm going to say attendance, that's the name of the file, and then underscore the version. So this is version 1, and I'm going to hit update. That's the name I've assigned to that file. I'm going to name another one. So I'll name this one. So go back to ... click rename, use the same format, 2026 -06 -17, and then underscore. This is an exercise file. And then underscore version 1. I'm going to hit update. If you notice, that exercise file was right at the end of my list, but the moment I named it, it went right to the beginning. Why did it do that? Well, it's because when you name files this way, when you put in the date first, the files automatically sort themselves in chronological order because the date is at the front. So the newest file will always appear at the top of your list or at the bottom, depending on how you've sorted your files. And this is huge because you never have to wonder which is the latest file you worked on. The file name will tell you exactly when you created that file. And so don't feel like you have to do this with all the files that you have saved. Try and do this. Try starting today going forward. So old files can stay exactly as they are, but everything new follows the naming convention. And in 3 months, you'll see a huge difference in how your files are organized. So that is the second part of the demo. Let's talk about the third part, sharing a file. So this is where most people lose control of their files. I'm going to show you how to share a file. And in OneDrive, there are 2 ways to share a file. The first is a direct share. But before I show you how to do a direct share, I'd like to show you how you can know whether your file is shared or your file is, or you have private access to your file. So when your files are listed, there is a sharing status that appears as a column. So if it says private, it means you're the only one who has access to that file. But once you share that file, the status changes from private to shared. So now let me show you how to share a file, and we're going to share this exercise file that we just renamed. So we're going to do a direct share. And when you do a direct share, you share the file with specific people. So to perform a direct share, just mouse over your file and you should see a share button. And there's multiple places where you'll see this share button, but it all kind of does the same thing. So this is the share button. Click on your share button. And you'll get a share box. And in that share box, there is a field where you can add a name, a group, or email. If you're sharing this file with somebody who's in your organization, just click in there and start typing their name in. And you'll find that their names will appear and you can choose the names from the list. So I'm going to share it with 2 people. Now I've decided to share the file with these two individuals. If you're sharing your file with the group, you can just type in the group name, it's going to appear. However, if you're sharing this file with someone who's not in your organization, you have to put in their email address because the names won't populate automatically. So you'll have to put in the person's email address in there. Okay, let's talk about something important, the permissions or the access that they get when I share the file with them. Over on the right, there is a pen icon. And if you click on that pen icon, you're going to see 3 permission levels for sharing. So the first permission level is can edit. What this means is if I share this file with these 2 individuals, they have access to my file and they can make changes to the file. They can override things, they can delete things, they can change the content of my file. So that is the first permission level. Then I have can view. What this means is they cannot make changes. All they can do is just read or view what's on my file, and they can also download the file. They can create a copy of that file. So that's what can view lets them do. And then finally, I have can't download. What this means is, yes, they can still view the file, but they can't make a copy. And this is great for critical documents that you don't want any copies of that document being made. So can't download is great for policy documents or anything like that. So those are the 3 permission levels. So you have to choose one of the 3. I'm going to put it at can view. I'm asking my colleagues to just read through the file I've created. So they won't be able to make any changes, but they can read the document. Below that, I have an optional field where I can add a message, maybe explaining why I've shared the file with them. This whole sharing experience will go to them as an email. And if I put in a message there, they're going to receive that message along with the email that invites them to view the document that I've shared with them. So you can add an optional message there. And once you're done, you can hit send and the invite will be sent to these 2 individuals in an email. Okay, so that's the first way that you can share a file. And I just want to show you that now that I've shared the file, the sharing status has changed from private to shared. It's telling me that the file has been shared, so multiple people have access to my file at this moment. Okay, let me show you the second way of sharing a file. I'm going to share this second file. I'm going to go back to the share button. This time I'm going to share the file using a link. So I can copy a link to this file and share it with anyone I choose to. However, if I mouse over copy link, take a look at what it says. It says anyone with the link can edit. But that's not what I want. I want people to be able to read the file, but not make changes to it. So how do I change that? Well, I do that by clicking on the settings icon. So the link settings icon. It's a full menu that controls how your link is going to behave. So in link settings, I can specify who the link is going to work for. Is it going to work for just anyone? Or is it going to work for people just within my organization, or people who have existing access to the document, or specific people that I choose? So of the 4, I need to specify who the link is going to work for. Next is what kind of access is that link going to give those people I'm going to share the link with? Is it editing access? Is it viewing access? Is it can view but can't download? Which of the 4 can I use? And there's also can review. Which of the 4 do I want the link to do, or do I want the link to, which of the 4 access levels do I want to give to the people I share the link with? So I'm going to say can view. So I don't want them making changes to my file. There's 2 extra options with links. You can set an expiration date for a link. You can set the link to expire on a specific date. So I could say, I want this link to expire a week from now, and I can set a password. This is great because if the link falls into the wrong hands, the person can't access the file without a password. So I can set a password that I'll provide to whoever I share the link with. So those are the two ways that you can share a document, and that is by creating a link or doing a direct share to specific people. Okay, that is how we share, but what if we need to revoke access? What if I want to stop sharing the document? Everyone who needs to read it has read it. Now I want to revoke access. Well, to do that, just go to your file, click on ... and look for the option Manage Access. Look for the option Manage Access. Manage Access is just a great place to come to see who currently has access to your file. So it will show you who has access to your file. If you shared the file with specific people, you'll see their names here. So I have 2 people I shared the file with, so they're listed here. If you shared the file with groups, you'll see the list of groups under the group section. If you created links, you'll see the links under the links section. So it's just a great place to figure out or to see who has access to that file, but it's also the place you come to revoke sharing access. So you can come here and say, stop sharing. And now these people will no longer have access to the file. Only you, as the owner, will have access to the file. And when I refresh the page, you'll see that the sharing status has gone back to private. It was shared before, now it's gone back to private. So that is how we share files in OneDrive and SharePoint, and that is how we maintain security. You can control permissions, you can put in an expiration date, you can put in a password, and that makes sure your files are secure. Okay, now let's talk about accessing previous version of your file. This is short, but it's life-changing. So if you'd like to find previous versions of a file that you have saved in OneDrive, mouse over your file, go to ... I promise you that ... menu has a lot of options in there. So feel free to explore it whenever you're working in OneDrive. So if you go to ... you have to scroll to the end because the option is toward the end of the list on the menu. And you'll see the option version history. Version history. So I'm going to click on that, version history. And for this document, I have 10 versions. There are 10 versions of this document. Remember, I don't think I told you this, but OneDrive can save up to 500 versions of each file. So it's mind-boggling actually to think about that you can have 500 versions of the same document. So for this document, it's 10 versions. You can manage each version. If you mouse over the version or any version and click on ... you can open that version of the document. You can restore that version, make it the current version, or you could delete that version if you don't need it. So it's great because it gives you flexibility, it gives you the freedom to make bold changes in your documents, try things out. If it doesn't work, you can always roll back and nothing is ever truly lost. So OneDrive can keep 500 versions of each document. So you can go back hours or days or weeks or even months. And honestly, it's the best reason to move all your work to OneDrive. So remember, OneDrive has 1 terabyte of storage, so you're not likely to run out of storage anytime soon on OneDrive. And the final demo is how to move files from your personal OneDrive to a team SharePoint site. So I'm going to move this document. So I want to move a whole folder. So I'd like to move this entire folder to my a SharePoint site, to a team SharePoint site that's currently in OneDrive. Maybe these are documents that I've been working on. I'm done and I'd like to move them to SharePoint for the rest of the team to be able to access. So in each SharePoint site, there is a document library. That's where documents are saved, and each member of the team can see and access these files based on the permissions that they have. So let's move this folder to SharePoint. So I'll mouse over the folder, go back to, you guessed it, ... And on that menu, there's an option to move that folder. So I'm going to click Move To, and you'll get a window. And on the left side of the window, you're going to see a few of the SharePoint sites that you have access to. So I only see 3 at this point, but I kind of want to see all of the SharePoint sites that I have access to. So I'm going to click on More Places. And then now I can see all the SharePoint sites that I have access to. I want to share this folder to this SharePoint site. So I'm going to click on it. And this is where I'd like to share that folder. So I'm going to click Move here. Okay. So let's do that. So that folder is being moved to the SharePoint site. And I'm going to take a look at the SharePoint site to be able to see. And there it is. I moved this folder to this SharePoint site. And if you want to manage access to this folder, you can just click on the ... menu and click on Manage Access and manage how each person who has access to that SharePoint site what kind of access each person will have. So this is how you manage access to folders on your SharePoint site. So just like OneDrive, you can actually sync a SharePoint library to your desktop. It'll appear as a folder on your computer, and you can drag, drop, and open files. So it's the same experience as OneDrive, but you're doing it with team files. And that is the last of the demos. So I'm gonna go back to my slideshow. Okay, so now we need an action plan. We've covered so much, and I don't want you to leave overwhelmed because it was a lot. So here's your action plan. Don't try and do everything at one go. Just pick one thing to do. So I have a list of things that you could do today. Pick one from this list. So you could today save one file to OneDrive, create your folder structure, or rename five files using the new naming convention. You don't have to do all 3. You can just do one. And then this week, you could do one thing. Move a key project files to OneDrive, share one file using a link instead of an attachment, or delete or archive 10 files that you no longer need. So choose one from that list. And then this month, you could do bigger things like migrate one team folder to SharePoint, set up permissions for your team, or do a 30-minute file audit, and that will once you create this focus file audit just for 30 minutes, you'll be shocked at how much you can clean up. The thing is, with small, consistent actions, you can make progress. Those beat any big plans that you may have every time. So just pick 3 things, one from each list, and then you can apply one of those. So now you have a system, and you can then manage your files faster and smarter using the system that we've just discussed. I'm going to hand over to Joy now for the next part.
Hi. Okay. Gloria, that was fantastic. And I have to say, I love the action plan at the end because it can be a little overwhelming, and it's always start small and keep building. And maybe your coworkers will also see you kind of building on that, and they'll want to jump in and do that also. Okay. So if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat. We're going to take questions in a few minutes. Just before we do that, I just want to walk you through a couple of things. So if you want to learn more information, file management is a very big topic. If you're more on the basic side of file management and you're on our website, go to courses, go to Windows. We have a really good computer basics course that gets you kind of started on file management. If you're newer to Microsoft 365 or want to start getting deeper into Microsoft 365 and all the different apps and how everything integrates, the Essentials course is really good for getting you started with OneDrive and SharePoint. Then the next level is the Microsoft 365 integrating with OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. And then I was going to say, I did want to mention this fall we're coming out with a OneDrive course. It's called OneDrive Deep Dive. If you're on our newsletter, you'll be notified when that course is available. That goes very detailed into OneDrive and how to get the most out of it. Next, if you want to get deeper into SharePoint, we have a really good basics course, which is like a fantastic starting point. SharePoint is a very, very vast topic, but this is a very good starting point about your files, and then you can get deeper into SharePoint and file management. And those, like, I mean, that is a lot of courses to talk about file management, depending on like kind of what area you want to focus on. So we always tell clients, if you are not sure, please always reach out to us. And we want to make sure that you're taking the right training and get the information that you need. And then one other thing I want to mention is, so this is our last webinar for this season. We take, wrong link. We take July and August off. And I say we take it off, but really we're preparing for like our next season. So you can always watch our replays over here under previous webinars for all our webinars we've ever done. And we're already working on the new season. It starts in September. And just to give you a bit of a teaser, September is going to be about Excel and Copilot, which I think is going to be a very popular topic, AI these days. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Gloria, let's dig into some of these questions. Okay, perfect. I'll start at the top. Okay, so someone just mentioned when you were talking about the sharing options, they said I also have a can review option when sharing. So just to clarify,
Yeah.
what does that option mean?
Okay, so someone can can review the document, they can view the document, they can also recommend changes to the document. So they can make comments, giving feedback or suggesting changes that could be made to the document. So it depends on what type of document it is. So when I shared my Word document, I had can review as well. But when I shared the Excel file, I only had the three: download, can edit, and can view. So it depends on the type of documents. But 4 is the max. You'll get one of the 4. I mean, 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4, 4 being the max options.
Okay, depending on what type of file it is.
Yeah, depending on what type of file it is.
Perfect. Okay. Do you know what time the link would expire on the specific date?
Okay, great question. There is nothing said. I just did a bit of research when I saw that question there. There's no specific time, but it's also good to not bank on the fact that it's going to be available on the date or the expiry date. So just work with working on the document until the day before the expiry date, because it can expire at any time on that date.
That sounds very Microsoft.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, this is a good question. What is the rationale for putting a version number in a file name if the version history tracks the versions for us?
Great question. So in OneDrive, you don't need the version number, but these principles work for any kind of file storage. If you're storing your files on File Explorer or any other kind of file management system, you'd probably need a version number. So that's the only reason why I put it there. But if you're storing in OneDrive, then you don't need a version number.
I was also just going to jump in. So, Gloria, I think you gave us a really good sample of like a file name, and I think it could work really well in a lot of instances. But I think we'd also kind of point out that you might want to work with your colleagues to decide some kind of naming convention that makes sense for
Yeah.
your organization or the way that you
Mm-hmm.
guys work. And I'll say we work with like a lot of clients, and a lot of it is discussion about you could do it this way or this way or this way. What makes sense? You
To
need to
you.
develop your own process so that you
Yeah.
guys are all following it. And there is
Mm-hmm.
more than one, I hate to say it, but there is more than one way to do
Yeah,
things.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, in OneDrive, who is able to view the version history? Is it just the owner, or can colleagues you've shared with also see it?
So it will definitely be you, the version owner, because, sorry, the file owner, because if imagine if you have previous versions that you haven't shared the document that you haven't shared with your colleagues, they shouldn't be able to see those versions. So they only see the version that you've shared with them.
So they're not seeing the previous versions.
No, then they won't be able to access the previous versions.
Is having the path visible on the footer of a document still recommended?
I think it depends, and I think it depends on what kind of document it is, the purpose of the document. Also, as you said, Joy, the way your organization works or your
Yeah.
department works, it just depends on your system and if it serves a purpose for you.
And I will say, if you choose not to do that anymore and you click on File Info, it should give you the whole path of where your file is saved.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm mentioning that because I'm not sure the reason for it, if that's like a process thing, if that was something that was very common, or
Mm-hmm.
if it was to help people find the file. So you can still find any file, file menu info.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I'll answer this question. Will the recording of this webinar be shared with us? Yes, it will be. Probably on Friday, Susan's going to send a follow-up email. If you have registered, that's the important thing. If you've registered for this webinar, because then we have your email, Susan sends a follow-up email. It will have a replay of the link, and it will have a handout to give you a reference for the content that we went through. Okay, data security could be a challenge when you are sharing your file with. Okay, sorry. Oh, I'm not sure if that's a question or it's more of a statement. So
Yeah,
yes,
I
I
think
agree.
it's more of a
Data,
statement. I
yeah,
agree
data
too, yeah.
security could be. So that's actually a really good reminder if you're sharing files
To
with
make
people outside your
sure,
organization.
yeah,
Yeah, that could be a data security. Also, your organization may not let you,
that's
or
true.
I will say sometimes too, you could have like an organization, if you share it from a certain SharePoint site, you could share it externally, but then
Mm-hmm.
other sites are kept internal. So that's all a
True.
internal, like you'd have to ask IT. But absolutely, that's
Functions
a fair
issue.
point. Be careful sharing outside your organization. I do
Yeah.
have a couple more questions. Okay, how do I know if someone else is working on a document at the same time as me, and will we overwrite each other's changes?
That's a great question. So when you're working on a file, when you're working in OneDrive or Word or Excel, you will see a little avatar or a little bubble with the person's face or their initials right at the top of the page. And that will show you that they're working on the document at the same time as you. You even see their cursor moving in real time. If they're typing something,
Yeah.
and you're typing something, you can see what they're typing in real time. It's called co-authoring. It's great. Everyone's changes are saved automatically. And so it works really great. And you don't really have to worry about overwriting each other because everyone's savers changes save automatically. And you can also turn on track changes to see what changes have been made if you're worried about changes being made to certain parts of the document.
Awesome. What happens to my OneDrive files if I leave the company or my laptop dies tomorrow?
Okay, so you don't have to worry too much about your laptop dying because your files live in the cloud. OneDrive is cloud storage. So as long as you're synced to your device, if your laptop dies, you get a new one, you can get your files appearing. And if you leave the company, your files stay in OneDrive, but your admin manager, your 365 admin, will get access to your OneDrive for a certain period after you leave. So nothing important will be lost before your account is closed. So that's why it's good to share files on OneDrive.
Someone said, Gloria, this was excellent. All caps, excellent.
Thank
Clear
you.
and actionable and just the right level to get started, and lots of thumbs up.
Thank you.
Okay, I can answer this question. Do you have course training exams for Microsoft Office certifications? So that is not our Great Canadian specialty. Our specialty is focusing on how people work in a professional office environment and creating very, very practical courses and consulting and coaching services so that they can use it in their everyday life. If you've taken training with us, you've probably noticed the trainers use very realistic examples, probably to the point sometimes where people are like, oh, do you have access to my computer? Oh, do you work a lot with these organizations? Because we work so much with people in business. That's really our specialty. Okay, how can we sign up for the newsletter? So here, I'll just share my screen. Perfect, you can see it. Okay, at the bottom of pretty much every single page on the website, there is a newsletter sign up. And then we get your information. And then when our new courses come out, you'll be notified because they come out for the fall. And then when the new webinar schedule comes out, we'll notify you and you can sign up anytime. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Gloria. I have a question regarding uploading documents in SharePoint. I uploaded a Word document that had a signature. However, when I upload the document, I lost the signature.
Hmm. Okay, so it depends on what type of signature it was. If it was a picture or if it was a digital signature or a signature line, Microsoft handles the three differently. So you could just go to the Microsoft website and type in signatures to see and check which signature or how it handles this type of signature that you had put into the document and if you can retrieve it.
Okay. With a version being included as part of the naming structure for a file, is there another document that says something informative about each version? You want to read that again?
Hmm.
With version
Yeah.
being included as part of the naming structure for a file, okay, is there
Mhm.
another document that says something informative about each version?
There isn't in OneDrive, but I suppose if you wanted to have a document that talked or that showed you the differences between each version, you could have that as an extra file, but that doesn't happen automatically. Doesn't show you the actual differences between the versions automatically. It won't list the differences. It just shows you what the version is at which point.
Gloria, if I'm correct, can you open both versions at the same time if you had to, if you want to
Absolutely.
compare?
You can.
So can
You
I
can.
tell you what I did one time? I was
Mm-hmm.
comparing a document, two versions, because I was trying to determine which one I needed to work with, and I actually
Yeah.
used Copilot to tell me what was
Oh,
different.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Copilot
So
is
I just
great.
thought I'd mention that. It was just kind of something I thought of in the moment, and I'll tell you, it
Yeah,
was
I think
very
it's a
helpful.
great way
So
to
yeah,
use Copilot. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
very
That's a great
practical
tip.
way to use Copilot.
Mm, yeah.
Okay. Is there any possibility of retrieving file versions that were not saved?
So no, so if you're working in OneDrive, changes are kind of saved automatically. So as you work in OneDrive, it kind of saves changes quite often. So if the there is no possibility of changes that were not saved. So this is for when you work on the web version of OneDrive or your file is in saved in OneDrive. You work on the web version of Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint and so forth. But if you're working on the desktop version and your file is not saved in OneDrive, yes, you could find some auto-saved documents, but I wouldn't bank on finding them. It's kind of a hit and miss situation. And that's why it's good to save your files in OneDrive because you're almost guaranteed that you'll find a version that you worked on previously, whether you had manually saved it or not.
And I will tell you to the person who posted that question, we have all been there.
Oh yeah.
New tax is that previous
I
version. I am so sorry
agree.
to hear that. And we've all been there. We've all had that pain at some point.
Yeah.
So it is
Yeah.
really important to just make sure we know and are following the proper processes.
Yeah.
Okay, someone said, have to jump off to another meeting at 1, but was extremely helpful. Thank you once again for a great webinar. Thank you. Thank you for the great training, Gloria. Really appreciate this webinar. Was perfect jumping off point. I agree. I think it's a perfect point for getting started.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Gloria. Thank you, Gloria. Enjoy. Great content. I learned a
Absolutely.
few things today. Thumbs up. Thanks for the webinar. Thanks for this training. Lots of thank yous. Thank you, everyone. And okay, just making sure there's no more questions. Oh, everyone, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who came today. We really appreciate having you guys attend and all your questions. Um, we're going to say goodbye now for today, and we'll see you in September for our next season for Excel and Copilot.
Thanks so much, Joy, our host, and our presenter, Gloria, for an amazing webinar today. And thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate your time. We're going to close the room now, but you'll receive a link, as Joy mentioned, to the replay of the webinar, as well as a practical handout in approximately 2 days, most likely Friday. I'll also include any links, items of mention, and the timestamps to the answers to your questions. Until next time, stay inspired. Have a fabulous afternoon. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.